short meeting tonight.
Yes, we do. Don't say it like it's...
Okay. Look at. Yeah, this meeting will be short. I would say, Terry, and we're all here except who isn't here? Federal.
Raise your hand if you're not here.
Yeah, raise your hand if you're. No, just Federal's the only one that's not here. Bob's right next to you. Okay. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comment is open. Anyone wish to address this august body on any item not on the agenda tonight? And that includes the TEP. We're good. Karen, we have any cards? Nobody wishing to speak? Okay, we'll hold off till then. Public comments closed. Approval of the minutes. Any additions, corrections, motions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Pierce, second Romek. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Abstentions besides the people that aren't here? Seeing none, we're on to the consent calendar item. Anyone wishing to push anyone wish to pull any item from the consent calendar?
Second.
Motion Pierce, second Romek. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none. There are no APC committee member reports, no planning committee. I'm trying to slow up to drag this out a little bit. You've got the associated committee reports. It says Transpec and Transplan will be available. Are they in front of us? We're going so quick I didn't even see them. The others will be at the TEP. They're not available. Okay, moving on to commissioner and staff reports, chair's comments. Briefly, we went to Washington, D.C. the last 2 days, met with a lot of people. Going to defer the major part of it to our executive staff comments. But I think it was productive. We're going to find out when we get the check, if we get the check, when, whatever. And once again, it seems like every time I go to D.C. it rains, so I'll leave it. Yeah, as long as it rains money. Okay, did you want to add, we'll throw the first commissioner anything to it?
I was there too.
Okay.
And we got good reception from DOT and they're jealous.
Yes, we got to keep them that way. I will add one thing if Randy can elaborate on a little bit. The one thing that has me somewhat concerned but happy is you get the message that we're not the only ones trying to do this. We may be the only ones pulling it off, but that just tells you you've got to stay focused and vigilant and keep pushing. Yeah, the technology stuff. Somebody was using that word Google way too much. Got me a little bit concerned, but I still think we're out in front on it. Commissioner comments, starting from the right. Anyone? Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, just a brief comment. The International Hydrogen Working Group is in Livermore and Berkeley today, tomorrow, and Friday. And I'm going to be speaking tomorrow and then attending their sessions at the Hotel Shattuck on Friday. These are folks from all around the world.
Good. Sounds good. Janet, Don, Karen. Don?
Nothing.
I know you're tired. Go ahead. Kevin, seeing no one? All right. Executive staff comments. That'd be you.
Thank you, Chair Hudson and Commissioners. Just a couple comments on the Executive Director's report, then I'll go into our trip to Washington, D.C. We signed an agreement with the country of Singapore. It's a very small country, of course, but they're actually testing, and they're testing what they call the Easy Mile program on the streets of Singapore in a test facility in live action. And so we signed an agreement to share information about how our research is progressing and some of the issues that we see when we get the 2 Easy 10s, hopefully earlier than July. The next big issue here is there was an announcement recently that a private ferry service was going to be started from Martinez into one large employer. They didn't say who the employer was, and I'm not going to tell you who the employer was. But the point is they bought 2 49-passenger concierge-type ferry boats. And when we went to Washington, D.C., one of the people that was in the second meeting with U.S. DOT, along with Deputy Secretary Victor Mendez, was a gentleman that was the executive director of FTA. And we asked him point blank, is that eligible for New Start money? And he said yes. And so rather than to start with a 300-passenger ferry and try to fill it up, why don't we start out with a 49-passenger ferry and try to fill it up, and then if it does fill up, buy another boat, versus buying a 300-passenger ferry boat that's not going to be filled and it's going to use a lot of diesel. So we're excited about this partnership that was launched recently in Martinez. We held our second annual Redefining Mobility Summit. There were over 300 people there. We had a Smarter City. One of the questions that were asked, a Smarter City panel, one of the questions that were always asked is, what about cybersecurity? So our keynote speaker was actually a gentleman from Michael Baker International who specializes in cybersecurity. So he talked about some of the safeguards that they're working on to make sure that the vehicles aren't hacked as they're put into production. We made Supervisor Anderson and I made a presentation to the Contra Costa Taxpayers Association. They didn't throw us out, and so that was good news, and I think all the information was well received, hopefully. We participated in a congressional roundtable in Oakland with Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congressman Swalwell, and Desaulnier, and it was all about technology. And in fact, we met with Congressman Swalwell, and he thanked us for being a part of that roundtable. It was very well represented. We made a trip to Sacramento. I do still get hives when I go to Sacramento. I'm actually allergic to going to Sacramento, but we had to go and went into the Capitol where I used to be summoned many, many times. Most of the time it wasn't to thank you for the work that you do. And we met with Assembly Member Thurman's office to discuss the potential sales tax measure, AB 1665, which transferred the authority to put a measure on the ballot from the Contra Costa County to the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. By the way, that passed the Assembly floor, I believe 68-0. It's unanimous. It's going over the Senate side now. And then we met with Senator Lonnie Hancock, briefed her on the same subject. And we did really, it pays to have FaceTime with our legislators. It's really worth the time. We went back and forth between a couple offices, Assembly Member Baker and Assembly Member Bonilla, and really got the language straightened out. And so it was time well spent. Chair Tatson and I and Ross went back and forth, and Lindsay went back and forth between the offices. Gave a keynote speech in Oregon to the ACEC, that's the American Council of Engineering, and then also the Oregon DOT. They want to know how to prepare for this onslaught of new technology. And then thank you to Mark for inviting me to HNTB's Think Forum. Got to participate as a panelist on that. We did meet with US DOT. The first meeting was with Assistant Secretary Greg Winfrey and the ITS Joint Program Office Director Ken Leonard, and a young man on loan from the Department of Energy, Alex, and I forgot his last name. But Alex was very interested in our attempts to model the future. So a majority of the organizations around the United States take today's technology and embed it over 25 years and model the benefits, and they say, wow, we're going to have more population, more greenhouse gases, and more delay. What we're trying to do is to take the next generation of technology, model that over 25 years, and show that there's going to be an improvement in greenhouse gas reduction. We'll get that. We'll get the 80% reduction with about a 58% turnover of the fleet to zero-emission vehicles, and then with closer spacing in our vehicle, we can reduce delay, we think, over the next 25 years to less than what it is today. So we're excited about that modeling. The Department of Energy is trying to do the same thing, and so we're going to hook up Martin Engelman and Fair and Peers and get this rolling. Then later on that day, we met with the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, asked the representative point blank, do we need a waiver for these easy miles? And he said he didn't think so. And that was with Deputy Secretary Mendez sitting right next to me. And so he said, maybe I spoke a little too soon. We might have to have a meeting or two, but it looks to me like you don't need a waiver. And the Deputy Secretary said, after hearing our proposals for our budget for Gomentum Station and for the Shared Autonomous Vehicle Program in Contra Costa County, he said, it sounds to me like we can either be out in front of this, on top of it, or behind it. And when it's rolled out, if we're not part of it, we're going to be asked why. Why not? And so I took that as a pretty positive sign that when we get our application in, that there may be a potential partnership in the future. And then the next day, we met with a number of different members of Congress, and we met with, Congresswoman Pelosi, her chief of staff and talked about hopefully getting a letter of support for our applications for future funding, and that went very well. And then we met with the Environment and Public Works Committee because a lot of our suggestions were embedded in the FAST Act. And so we want to just take the time over the last 6 years to thank them for listening to us over and over and over again about the need for a letter of no prejudice in that bill, which is in there now. And then at least make sure you have autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles eligible for innovation grants, and that's in there as well. So we're excited, and we thank them for that. And then now we flew back at, we got up at, what was that, 3 o'clock our time here? And we're here now. So it was a great meeting,
About when I got
great
home.
set of meetings, and then Chair Hudson had to leave early because he had to make sure that we get an allocation from the Air Board for our testing of the
And it went
shared
through, right?
autonomous vehicle.
Full mill, 1 mil.
Yeah, $1 million. Thank you.
Okay, any comments or questions of the exec? Seeing no lights, comments or questions about the calendar? We are adjourned to Wednesday, June 15th at 6 p.m. The Transportation Expenditure Plan Special Board meeting will happen as soon as Chair Tatson gets over here.
I forgot to mention. We for the fourth year in a row, we got a platinum award for the Government Finance Officers Association for a clean audit.
Very